Well, folks, there's no real easy way to say this, but the month of December, it was quite the doozy. Yeah, open heart surgery kind of doozy. Yeah. Now, many of you already know this, and I appreciate those that do that have supported me in this journey, but when baby B was born about 17 months ago, a week after birth, he had open heart surgery. He had a thing called transposition of the great arteries. And in fact, when he was born, he was turning blue immediately. So he was rushed to Primary Children's Hospital. They figured out what was going on, got him the oxygen, got him leveled out for a week, and then had open heart surgery, the first one. So yeah, the first week of his life, he was on oxygen support because had he not been, then he wouldn't have survived. But it's fortunate for us that even though it's a super rare thing, transposition of the great arteries, Primary Children's is such a solid hospital. They see that a couple times a month. I mean, less than 1% of babies, I think, are born with TGA, but Primary Children's, man, they're on it. They figured it out, and he had the surgery. So we were good. Right? Now, if only that were the case, as many of you know that have dealt with medical situations yourself or through family members, you know that with some things, there's always a chance that like getting fixed once doesn't mean you're fixed forever. And unfortunately, with what baby B had with the transposition of the great arteries, that was his case too. We knew that diagnosis, that heart disease, was a lifelong condition that we were gonna have to battle. But at the same time, we were grateful because the diagnosis he had, like there was still a great chance that he could live a long, healthy, normal life, which was the blessing behind all of the madness. But there was also a great chance that there would need to be many more procedures, surgeries, and hospital visits and all that stuff. And basically, he would have to have a cardiologist for the rest of his life. And best case scenario, he would have to have annual checkups with his cardiologist, even if nothing else ever occurred. Now, fortunately for me, baby B, and my wife, one of the best pediatric cardiologists on the West Coast in the nation, I don't know, he's dang good, happens to be one of my best friends. Played ball with him in college, super fortunate. So the morning that this whole thing occurred, I texted my buddy, said, hey bro, you working today? We're down in the ER. It wasn't funny, you know, baby B's in trouble. And it's been great because he's been his doctor ever since. To have your homie, who is also like really, really good at being a doctor, be, you know, the lifesaver for your child, that's pretty dope. Now, what baby B had was more of a plumbing issue and not so much of an actual heart issue. I mean, to be clear, he did have, it is a congenital heart disease, but effectively what was going on is all of the arteries and the piping into his heart, that was the issue. His heart is actually strong and good, the valves are good, but the plumbing that went in, used blood would go in and used blood was going back out, hence he wasn't getting any oxygen into his body. So that was the issue. They had to like cut his arteries, move everything around and reattach him to the heart so that he could get, you know, good oxygenated blood out of the heart into his body. Now that surgery at 1 week old, that was open heart surgery and it was intense. It was hard to see, frankly. Obviously never had to go through anything like that in my life. And it's just seeing a baby coming out of a surgery like that, it's just, you wouldn't want that for anybody. It's just, it's tough. But we were in the hospital for a total of about 3 weeks and then we made it home and baby B has been crushing it. Now that surgery went extremely well, and because of that, because of how well it went, there was a chance that he would never need surgery again, but obviously it would need to be like, you know, we got a lot of doctor checkups, a long way to go. There was still a great chance he would need surgery. So what begins is the process of medical appointments. And basically it's a step-up series of appointments. So obviously we're in the hospital for 2 weeks, then we had to go back to the hospital a couple weeks after we got home for another checkup, and then it was a 1 month checkup, and then a 3 month checkup. And this whole time they're just measuring the progress and the growth because he's a baby. So obviously they want to make sure he's growing and et cetera, et cetera. And he was growing really, really, really well, except there was still a problem. Forgot to take my pants off. You see, he was growing, baby B was doing great, growing, getting stronger, getting bigger, but two of his like pulmonary arteries were not expanding, they were not growing. And so the flow from his heart to his lungs, his heart was working too hard to get it through the narrow pulmonary arteries. So what we needed to do was put some stents in. Now, fortunately, stents did not mean, wrong foot, did not mean open heart surgery, but it did mean a procedure where they had to go through his vessels in the legs, all the way up through his body, through his heart, to the pulmonary arteries, and they had to put these I describe them as Chinese finger traps into his pulmonary arteries that can be expanded as the child grows. So basically, as he grows, these finger traps don't grow, but they can continue to stick balloons through his legs, through his heart, and expand the stents as he gets bigger to not, need multiple procedures, even though the stent procedure is a procedure. It's overnight. It's not as bad and serious as open heart surgery. So when baby B was 6 months old, we were back in the hospital for an overnight procedure, and they put the stents in, and the procedure went well. And obviously it was a lot less intrusive than the open heart surgery. So we felt good about it, optimistic. However, what it meant was because they did the stents, we were gonna have to go back guaranteed at least 5 to 6 times as he grew up till he was full grown to have those stents expanded. So we were guaranteed quite a few hospital visits, but the whole time we're like, well, at least it's not open heart surgery. And so the hope and the thought was after that first stent procedure that would last him a good year or two until they had to go back in and widen him. Unfortunately, 6 months later, they deemed that they would already need to schedule a procedure to have them widened. So we went in on a Thursday, early December, to have the stents widened, and the procedure went well. However, the bummer was that they actually had to add more stents into his pulmonary arteries, which was the bad news because they had to put it right next to the valve. And then Friday, the next day, we stayed overnight. They came in and said the stents were just too close to the valve. There was too big of a risk that they were going to cause a valve issue. So we needed to get those taken out immediately, and they scheduled us for open heart surgery the following Tuesday. Yeah, that was a doozy. So on Tuesday, December 17th, we got up at 5 a.m., drove to Primary Children's for a 7:30 a.m. open heart surgery. Yeah, it was stressful. The whole procedure, surgery, lasted about 6-7 hours, but fortunately they give you calls about every hour and a half to give you an update just on how the status is going. So it was super nice to know that as it was progressing, things were moving along. And frankly, by the end of the surgery, everybody was super pleased and the outcome was as good as they could have hoped for. Some of the complications we were worried about was the fact that because he had all the stents in there, they had to take the stents out now and put in a patch of cadaver, human cadaver patches around the arteries. So they were worried just how much damage was already in the arteries due to the stents, but also the valve. They were very worried about the valve. Fortunately for us, both of those scenarios worked out perfectly. Valve was good and they're super happy with the patchwork. The crazy thing about this whole thing was the recovery. It was so much different than when he was a week old. Obviously, a week old child is different than a 16-month-old child, but the recovery, he was in ICU for 1 day. He was out of ICU the next day and he was literally throwing balls less than 24 hours after coming out of open heart surgery. So that's my boy playing catch day 1 after open heart surgery. That's how we roll. So what's next? Where does that leave us? Well, fortunately, because the surgery went so well, there's a great chance that he could maybe never need another procedure, another surgery ever again for the rest of his life. However, there's still a chance that he could need more surgeries, procedures. It all just depends how his body grows, how his body develops. There's just a lot of divergent paths that could occur. But fortunately for us, got my buddy, my bro, pediatric cardiologist, going to take care of him all the way. But I really can't thank all of the doctors and nurses enough at Primary Children's. Really, it's a special skill set of people that can do what they do. It's been such a positive experience to work with and to meet all of the amazing caregivers at Primary Children's. What a blessing it was for us. I just can't give a big enough shout out to all the folks at Primary Children's Hospital. I mean, from the doctors and nurses all the way to the cafeteria workers, everyone that makes that place run, the janitors, they all play a part to make that place somewhere that parents can go through the hardest thing and still survive it. So big shout out to them. Shout out to the folks at Ronald McDonald House as well, because they provide just a place to crash, a place to grab some food. It's a nice respite from all the stress you're dealing with. And if any of you have ever served or volunteered for the Ronald McDonald House at Primary Children's, big shout out, big thank you to you, because that is something I know 100% for fact that all the patients and all the patients' families truly appreciate the benefit of having a nice home cooked meal or somewhere to stay right in the hospital floor. Now, if any of you have gone through similar struggles as well, my heart goes out to you, especially to all the kids. What a thing to be brought into this world and to be going through something like that. Fortunately, I hope baby B does not remember a lot of that, but there were a lot of teenagers, a lot of older kids that we saw at that hospital. It's tragic, it's tough. And if you're going through something like that right now, all I gotta say is you gotta stay strong, have faith, believe. If we don't have hope, what do we have? And we're talking hope in the longer, eternal perspective of things as well. Somehow I believe it's all going to come together in this life or the next. But again, I can't thank you all enough for the support and the concern that you've given baby B since he's been born. It's been quite the journey, but all I can say is baby B, tremendous kid. He's crushing life, just like I hope all of you are crushing life. I wish you all nothing but the best of luck. Let's go out there and make it a good day. Peace.